Hello, this is Jared playing Oxygen Not Included. Last episode, I set up this metal refinery to produce first bits of steel. I'm going to continue to make some steel. This area down here has been warming up a little bit. You can see some of that snow has melted away. So I want to make a system that's going to capture that heat, turn it into a little bit of power, and essentially not let that heat escape into the world, allow everything to melt away. I'm going to do that by getting a little bit of aluminum ore. We'll put that through the metal refinery to make aluminum. And that's the reason I'm doing that is because that's very conductive. And if I make some aluminum pipes and I put everything together correctly, then this should actually work out quite nicely. I haven't built this particular system for a bit, so we'll see how this goes. I also see a little bit of water is unexpected. You can see one of those pipes bursting there. I definitely was not careful with petroleum interacting with snow, which became ice and gone in and out of this machine and getting too hot. Anyways, so yeah, some of that metal has been cut away, brought up here to be turned into aluminum. So as I've done that, by the way, my live audio recording got lost, so I'm talking this through after I've played through, but we'll continue on. So the other thing is I want ceramic, and clay is one of the inputs, and I don't have a lot on the main asteroid, so that's why I went over there to get a little bit of clay. We've got to protect that's being dropped off down here, and then I've got these clins that are starting that. That's some of the insulated pipes I want to make out of ceramic. Most actually is igneous rocks can be fine, but in a few cases I'll want to have a little bit of ceramic available, as well as the metal refinery itself. I'm changing that out for a ceramic version, and just trying to measure where I want to put in a steam turbine. I've had a habit of always putting one steam turbine, which doesn't keep up if you're continually using it. So I was smart and thought ahead in planning to put two. The other thing that I often look back, have you ever played this game and thought, I really wish I didn't do that? Of course you have, this is Oxygen Not Included. But another thing that I've been burned on so many times in this particular setup is allowing something like ice or snow this next to the steam or set on top of the steam turbines. They melt, and you get too much liquid. They flood the machines, anyways. Fortunately, this time I remembered that and did not let that happen. All right, polymer press is overheating. Now that we have some, I'm going to get rid of these. I'll bring them back later on with steel. But I think for the time being, we've got enough plastic. Alright, and actually, may not necessarily be the machines itself. That's actually too much heat. Maybe the hot petroleum that's heating up the whole world. So those machines themselves, plus the hot petroleum that's being dropped off, causing an issue. So now I'm starting to think about, okay, I need to keep the environment cool, including the actual steam turbines. So I'm going to have an aqua tuner that's going to sit inside this cooling area. And actually that has the added benefit, I can keep the polymer presses once I bring those back later on. Alright, so here's my design underneath the steam turbines and underneath the metal refinery, essentially insulated all around. I've got this air vacuum where I'm going to bring in the heavy watt wire line to power an aqua tuner. I have a few metal or radiant pipes that's going to be going in. I've got the few metal tiles made out of aluminum just to really interact the hot petroleum line that's going in and out of the metal refinery to interact with what will eventually be steam. But I've got the research for miniature pipes, or pumps rather. So that's what I'm going to use to create a little vacuum there to make sure that we don't have heat escaping just because I'm bringing in some power. So there is the liquid storage, which this doesn't work out perfectly, but I'm trying to tee into the petroleum line. I get a little bit of water in this process, but it's easy enough to clean out. And then eventually what I'm aiming for is half a tank of petroleum, or 2.5 tons-ish. Pretty sure in the past that's what that's enough to work out. Also, I'm putting some granite tiling that just really helps interact. If I run some radiant pipes in particular, that's really going to transfer the heat from inside the petroleum to this little chamber, which will eventually, as I mentioned earlier, just be steam. So there is some petroleum going in there. We're continuing to make a little bit more aluminum in the process. So here's later on with my actual design. I just have a whole circuit of liquid going in and out of that liquid storage. With it's not all radiant pipes, mostly just have radiant pipes just going through the granite layer, and then it's just regular granite pipes for the rest of it. Pretty sure that's going to be enough. Just making sure that we've got a pump that's going to create a vacuum before I dump in some liquid that's going to eventually turn into steam in the process. So 2 steam turbines are going to essentially push water into the setup. This pump is going to create a vacuum area. I'm going to have a door here, which I can control. So I'll have it open initially to create the vacuum. And once this is a vacuum's been established, I'll be able to close that door and have 2 chambers essentially. Well, actually I have 3 chambers. One on the left for the power to come in with the vacuum, and this little section. Actually, thinking about this right now, I could have just used this as my heavy wire line going in, but whatever. Yeah. Anyways, nonetheless, I'll be able to have, like, say this little section here. I put in this thermo sensor. It's not actually used, but I'm thinking in case I decide I want it later on, it'll be sitting in there. One of the mistakes I often do is I forget the actual vent in the water. I have it in this case, which is nice. It's really annoying when you get this whole thing vacuum created, sealed off, and you realize, oh, you forgot a path for the steam turbines to dump their water back in. So super happy about that little particular thing. There are certain construction projects where if you forget, it's just so you'd have to go back. So you can see the pump starting off. Probably not the best place, actually, in retrospect. I probably should have put the pump in the center, but it'll work. All right, while I'm waiting for that, because I put the pump on the side, it's taking a little bit longer than expected. So we're going to create some fertilizer. I decided I'm going to tee into the polluted water treatment. So we're going to make sure that we don't have any germs going into the atmosphere here, as this is consuming polluted water that doesn't have germs. But not that, it's a particular issue at the moment because it's so cold, but nonetheless. But I'm a little bit nervous about natural gas. So you can see I've got some gas storage and a pump that's going to detect non-oxygen essentially and pump that away there. The plan is I'm going to set up some farms in the future, so having some fertilizer is certainly going to help that along. So as this is constructed, just having an eye on my vacuum setup so that I can do that. All right, a little bit later on, you can see that I finally have the fertilizer running. I just have a few little changes here. I think it's just a pipe that needs to be, or no, the pipe's in there. So we're in the fertilizer business. And we finally have that vacuum. So I give the signal to close this door off. In fact, I think I even go as far, I even cut that line just to make sure I don't want that door to accidentally be opened up in the future. You can see the petroleum line going in a circuit, even while the metal refinery is not being used. And what I need to do, I'm just trying to figure out why water's not going in there. So a little cut there is going to dump in a little bit of water. This is where I've got to watch this. If I go away and forget this, I could flood in too much liquid. Fortunately, I don't do this time round, so I just dump in enough water to make this whole system work. So we've got a vacuum in there. So once this becomes steam rather, it'll just be pure steam that's in this zone. from this point on, there's no reason why I can't use the metal refinery, so I crank that up, making some steel, and just watch temperature go up as time goes on. So asking for more steel. I've got a number of projects I want to do, including taming a volcano, so having a bunch of steam would be nice. But here's another mess up that I made. So earlier on, I forgot that to space out the trees to put in auto sweepers. Because with the lighting, there really isn't much space. So I've had to actually pull a few trees and do some rejigging here. Essentially, I want 4 trees per stable. And I'm just measuring out the auto sweepers and the conveyor loaders such that I won't have to manually remove eggs, because that'll be an absolute nightmare. All right, my next thought, I talked about the steam or the taming a volcano, possibly this guy right here, gold volcano. It means some steel. And I kind of mistakenly setting up this, thinking that getting dupes to run to this location a little bit faster by having these tiling is going to help. I have a little bit of a change of plans, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. Obviously, it takes a lot to get rid of some of that snow. So the other thing that I want to do is go underneath where I'm making that. Oh, I'm seeing that I'm having a bit of an issue with one of my stables a little bit earlier than I expected. So my plan is to make another stable of the BAMs. But what I want to do is underneath where I'm producing my ethanol, I want to clear this out. So that's why I've got the Atmo suits. I don't want anyone to have to do this. Work in an extremely cold, wet environment. So just giving a little bit of environmental protection before we get in here. But essentially when I use the floor underneath, there is just a storage for the ethanol. Eventually we'll get a pump in there and we'll create a farm. First farm that we have. A little bit of copper in this case. But yeah, so that'll grow some plume squash. That'll be the input for a stable of Bamas. And then I'll have a new source of meat. So we've got some Atmo suits. At this point, I'm giving the command to clear out the area underneath. You can definitely see that the snow's not going to stay where it is. We're making a floor there for that ethanol to stay. Eventually, we'll choose one of those guys to create a stable underneath that. The other thing I'm doing is just having the eggs selected so that the egg removal can be automated. Super nice watching one of the eggs go out, because definitely I'm going to forget, and it's just going to be annoying in itself. Forget one of the conveyor loaders, but I come back and grab that later. Right, we're getting close to the point where for some reason my microphone started working again. So I'm going to switch from giving you an overview of what I've done after the fact to back kind of recording things live. As I dig out some of this solid carbon dioxide, a big bubble of carbon dioxide gas has appeared, which is interfering with these pumps, getting a little bit of carbon dioxide out. I saw some damage here, so what I've done is I just made an alter. This is essentially everything else than oxygen supposed to be there. You can see that's becoming backed up. That's essentially the problem. But if I push this down a little bit, and I figured we'll do a high pressure vent as well, hopefully that's going to fix this situation. So after thinking about this a little bit more, I'm making this easier runway to get to this machine. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what am I doing? We can do a little bit better. Instead of making it easier to get to this guy to send material, why don't we just make a conveyor belt? Let's see, you've got lots of iron, and instead go down. And I've got a new little room I'm going to put right there. to collect the material I want. That's just going to save my dupes from having to run that extra way. We've got some power there, so yeah, we'll use that to send material over to this asteroid. Idle, let's, well, I guess I have to find a task for this guy to work on. Well, the last little bit of this setup is being done. I'm starting to build a farm down here. We're going to grow some plume squash. That requires some ethanol, but we have this ethanol factory essentially. And with plume squash, then I'm going to get a stable with Bamus, perhaps just underneath. Recreating that polymer press, this time making it out of steel, hoping that's not going to overheat in this case. I do have a temperature or thermosensor right next to it. And where are we with also just making more metal, including steel? But plastic ladder, I've stopped building this in a bit. Maybe we'll try to expand while we're waiting for a little bit more of that stuff to be made. Let's get some plume squash growing. Let's make sure we've got ethanol on. Oh, carbon dioxide. That's right. I forget it's that cold. Actually, I don't think there is any carbon dioxide anymore. So a little bit in the pipe that's there. How to best do this? Maybe I can just kind of. Oh, I do see a little bit of liquid carbon dioxide. Okay, well, let's just carry on. We'll see where we can get. Take out a few of those. In the meantime, I'm putting in my plan to pick up the grown plume squash with conveyor loaders. Maybe this is overkill, but bringing in a liquid temporizer just to bring it up just warm enough such that that carbon dioxide is no longer liquid. We're, of course, going to have to bring in heavy wire to make that work. So I fixed one other problem that I just saw that I'm going to have in the future, which is this plume squash is dropped off here. Ideally, that'd be in a carbon dioxide area. Actually, there's tons of carbon dioxide right here, but this little dip down here would be perfect place for it. So yeah, that's going to make, just make sure that I have plume squash picked up. But I noticed another problem, which is some of these plants on this side is far too cold. So what I'm going to do to try to fix that is to take some radiant pipes, make this out of aluminum, have that go through this guy here, and then down like this. So this is where I'm going to leave it today. So I have changed out my stable here to have a little bit of automatic egg removal. We are collecting some ethanol. We are growing plume squash. We have our first mammoth in a stable. And as well, we've got this little room to double check that we've got all the heat inside here and not out in the world. That looks like that is actually functioning good. I've got to be cautious though that, oh yeah, very cautious actually that we're going to have to install this line to keep this, the steam turbines cool. But that's something I'll do another day. All right, well, thanks anyone for liking, subscribing, and watching, and hopefully I will see you next time playing some Oxygen Not Included. Another thing we need to do is turn down this stable.